Hi, hey, hello. Welcome to this video. It's my March and February reading wrap up. We've got a lot to get through. I did a decent chunk of reading for me. It's a lot of romance, a little bit of rereads, and some dystopian stuff and a nonfiction. So, I guess here it is. I don't really give synopsis of the books. I kind of just give vibes and kind of tell you what maybe the books are if I can remember. I'm someone whose synopses like falls out of my head unless I had a good time. Knowing that, book number 1 next to you, it's Friends to Lovers. They meet 15 months, you get a prologue 15 months in the future, like behind, and they meet on New Year's Eve, and guess what happens on New Year's Eve? What? They share a kiss. And then they do what? Pretend it never happened. Because of course they're friends to lovers. They couldn't let the kiss get in the way of a budding friendship. She wants to buy a bus. She's having like some sort of, I don't really know why she decides to buy a bus. She buys a bus. He helps her renovate it, and the plot ensues. They get together. My biggest con of this book is that I don't like when there are things alluded to, intimate scenes that never come to fruition. Like, if you're not gonna make that scene happen, don't tell me about it. Okay? I can't stand it. Other than that, fun time. A book that shocked me that I didn't think I would be into is this. I thought, why not? I listened to the audiobook. Best decision, because I think if I read this with just my eyes, it would not have been a good time, because it was kind of, then I don't know, she's like a nurse who wants to sleep with her like situationship's got a girlfriend, and the roommate has always kind of had a crush on her. Somehow they find out that she's got a mask kink. He himself is a masked TikToker. He decides to stalk her and engage in the types of things that she's really into, and the story pursues ride the knife handle. You know what I mean? Literally dedicated to those brave enough to ride the handle. That's the vibe. It was a good time. I did not expect to have a good time, but you know, it is what it is. Next, Deep End. Look, okay, great time. About 2 collegiate swimmers and divers who get together. 2 people who are apparently into BDSM that we never actually learn about, and instead they just belittle each other, belittle themselves, or predominantly the main female character, of just like how much of a freak of nature she is because she's into BDSM. And there's even a trigger warning in the beginning of this, and it's just like, I want you to know that this is, I mean, I heard the world was like, oh my god, it's so spicy, which I just feel like, yeah, sure, there's spice scenes, but it's dom sub and nothing else happens. Like, they go through a whole, see, again, don't tell me if you're not gonna do it. They have a whole list. We never go over the list. What are you actually into? Because what you're telling me you're into is what everybody seems to be into in a romance book. That's all. You had such an opportunity to provide people with like education when it came to kink or BDSM, and you just chose to do what you've done in like every other book. It's the same type of relation, dom sub, okay. Sure, bud. However, I did have a good time. And besides the like lack of education and like not showing on screen other things that were alluded to, I don't like how often they were apart, because he's a swimmer and she's a diver. And so apparently they're never at any meets together, which I feel like isn't true, but I was a tennis player. I wasn't a swimmer or a diver, so maybe they never are together. But that was probably the biggest like annoyance in the book, is that they spent so much time separate from each other. Next, Go Look Yourself. This is book 2 in the like, I don't know, like Christmas Royals, a Royals and romance novel. So the first book is Christmas something, I don't know. It was like, I think the comp title was like Nightmare Before Christmas. And so in this world, the different holidays are different worlds with different royals. So if you ever have read The Night Before Christmas, Jack falls into Christmas Town and culturally appropriates Christmas with Halloween vibes. And so this is like that. And so in the first book, his brother, the heir to Christmas, falls in love with Halloween, hence the comp title. And so he's the spare of Christmas who falls in love with the heir of St. Patty's. And in this world, this current dynamic is someone stealing Christmas magic, and they believe it's St. Patty's. And so here they go. They set off. He's like sent to St. Patty's World and they get to know one another. And it was a good time. I feel like the third act breakup or conflict was very believable with what was happening with this dynamic. And the little bit of a plot twist that like happens, like I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like I see it coming. And then it like pivoted to the left a little, not a lot. I feel like most people were like, duh. But I was just caught off guard because I didn't think that's where it was gonna go, and it did. And I said, oh, they got me. So this was fun. The most unbelievable thing is this takes place over 7 days and they just magically fall in love, which of course it's a romance novel, of course. But because I think in the first book, I think it feels like it takes place over months because there are several things. So I was like, oh, okay, sure. This is literally 7 days. Next, first time caller. Oh my god, I love this one. It was so fun. People are getting arcs of her next book and I am jealous. This is a single parent trope. I didn't think I'd be into it, but the kid causes chaos, which causes them to interact. He's like a host of a romance hotline that's jaded. He doesn't believe in love anymore. And she's just a single mom who's like, you know, there's just no one's willing to make the magic. And so he ends up getting her on this romance hot show, and they try to find her a date, and obviously that can't work out because so then the plot ensues. It was really cute. I can't remember what the third act conflict is, but I don't think I was mad at it. I had a great time with this. It was so fun. I loved it. Honestly, I think my favorite romance that I've read out of the last 2 months is this one. Then a little bit of YA romance. These two are in high school. She's like president or VP. No, he's president, she's VP. She's annoyed that he only won because he's popular, yada, yada, yada. Anyways, he gets hurt, as you can see. They end up playing like a World of Warcraft type game where people don't know, like you can be whoever you want. And they end up becoming, she knows it's him, he doesn't know it's her. And they obviously fall in love at some point. This one is slow, a little bit of a slow burn. I originally started this book, put it down, and then picked it back up like a year later. So it's okay. Very YA, which I realize I think I'm steering away from like YA romance because it just doesn't give me what I want. Although I did really enjoy that when he finds out that she's kind of been omitting the truth about like her identity and who she is in the game, instead of breaking up, they have like an actual conversation about like, this really hurt my feelings. And she then proceeds, like, I think it was a very good example of how to like work through a tough conversation. And so I really loved it for that. So that was fun. And then here will be the books. I have a little notepad of the 3 books that I read from the library and got them digitally, which is For One Night Only, which is we're getting the band back together because the main female character needs to like revamp her image. And so she wants to, the old band that they used to be together, she gathers them up because she needs some good PR, and one of them happens to be someone she was in a long time relationship with and hasn't spoken to in a long time. And he's like the only one who's hesitant. And so then he agrees, and so they fall back into old dynamics. And honestly, it was a good time, but I think it lacked tension. Like there really could have been some like there was a lot of angst, but there wasn't enough yearning and tension building for me. So I wasn't mad at it, but it could have been better. And the third act breakup, or like the third act conflict, fully made sense. Like it went off the rails and I said, yeah, I see how this character, it fully makes sense for this character to have just like lost it. Yeah, and for him to react that way, yes. So I'm always a fan when the third act conflict makes sense, because I hate when it doesn't, because why do we always have to have one? And why does it always have to result in a breakup? Because then we can never have the couples together. It pisses me off. And yet I keep reading. Next was Last Call at the Local. This one is about an American who gets stranded in Cobh, Ireland, which is really funny because when I went to Ireland, our tour guide, Gary, told me and my sister that we needed to go to Cobh because it's the last stop where people got picked up from the Titanic. Anyway, she's there, and so that comes up. And she is essentially stranded there because it's off season for Ireland, and so she's like, oops, there's like no tourists, and she goes to the local and she has a meet cute with a cat, and that cat is attached to the owner of sorts, and then they have a little bit of things, and he's immediately like smitten with her. And so he's like, you should be someone who helps us. like, do better with our pub. And once again, the story commences. This one has, not that I have OCD, but I feel like it perhaps has like good rep for OCD and what OCD is actually, and not like the perceived idea of it. And I thought it was good. The third ad breakup here also makes sense for both characters. So we love that. Yeah, it was a good time. There is a little bit of sister stuff because it really got me. There's like a whole line about like, but I like, was crying. The last romance I read, well, not really. Well, the one that's predominantly romance, I would say, is I got abducted by aliens and now I'm trapped in a rom-com. Okay, I thought I was gonna love this more than I actually did, because I think I really enjoyed I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. This felt like too much world building, for sure. Like, it's a girly pop in our day and age, and she does in fact get abducted by aliens, and she breaks out of the alien facility, finds herself on an alien planet, gets shot. She ends up falling in love with other aliens. Okay, and it's a hilarious time. There was a moment where the swords of the aliens could have crossed and they didn't, and I think that was a disservice. I think we should have had more time with the possibility of a polyamorous relationship, and maybe that'll be in future books. Maybe we'll see that, but I'm kind of sad that we didn't have that in this book. And instead, where you could have taken the time to flesh that out, we got so much world building for this random planet. And I couldn't remember if I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon had this much world building, because I was just like, oh, okay, I actually don't care that this other like alien who wants to create a war is like coming over and being misunderstood. Like, I don't care. Like, I get like this. What? So will I read the next book in this installation? Yes. Let's not get it twisted. I will I will indeed read it. So that wraps up all of my romances. Okay, so my rereads were basically The Raven Cycle, the Dream Thief, and Lily Blue, or whatever. I don't have much to say. I had the itch to reread The Raven Cycle, and so I did. I feel like I forgot about the F slurs that are dropped in here because of what's his face. However, I loved knowing the couples in the end, because then you can just see the foreshadowing. So I enjoyed, I think, this one more the second time around, and I think I enjoyed this one even more as well, because I think since I've already read it and I know how it ends, I could pick up on the fun little foreshadowing for the relationships. So I guess if you've never read The Dream Cycle, or the Raven Cycle, it's about Blue, who lives in this town. Everyone around her is a psychic. She's basically like an amplifier or a mirror, and she is there to, she always goes with somebody to the church, and they record in this tiny town, and I think they're in like the Carolinas or Virginia, and she amplifies so that they can catch these people, because people pay in this town to see whether or not they're the ones who are going to die a year after, or like die within the year. Because on this day, all the spirits who are going to die like cross and they keep notes. Anyways, she's there, she hears a boy, and only she can hear him. And it like basically ensues. You find out he's a Raven Boy, which is the like all boy private prep school in her town, who she can't stand. And she calls them the Raven Boys because their emblem is a raven, and she befriends 3 other boys, and the main boy is there to look for Glendower, like the lost king or whatever. And so the baby romances and the baby adventures begin and ensue over the span of 4 books. And surprisingly, I never picked up the last book. I got to book 3, put it down, and then I said, I don't need to read The Raven King. There goes my battery. 1 second. Okay, we changed my battery. I think maybe they shifted. I don't know. If it did, sorry. So next are my last 3 books, and they're the ones in the dystopian and nonfiction vibe. So I read A Fable for the End of the World. This is basically a Hunger Games, but make it updated in the sense that it deals with like debt and credit, and everything is in fact viewed on like tablets and iPhones and whatnot. And so in this world, when you accrue so much debt by this overarching capital of sorts, you have to sacrifice yourself for somebody. So like if I were to owe 500,000 debts, I could put myself in the game called the gauntlet, or I could be like, nah. If I was a parent, I could be like, take my kid. And then you get like picked up, you get a jump start, and then this person here, an angel, finds you, and you have to either last like the 2 weeks, or like if you don't get killed and you can make it 2 weeks, then you win the gauntlet. But oftentimes, of course, they've been trained to murder the people, and so people die in like gruesome ways. And it's also horrific because it's like you can put up other people for your own debt. It's bananas. So she ends up in the gauntlet, and this is essentially the angel that's like meant to like go hunt and kill her. And basically it's a tragic YA sapphic Hunger Games. I'm gonna be honest, here's what happened. I picked this up the Monday. I got the hold from the library, the audiobook, the Monday before Sunrise on the Reaping. So I started this and thought, oh, I really effed up. Then obviously New Release Tuesday came around, and then I read that. Devastating. Then I proceeded to read the next nonfiction that I read, and then I returned to this afterwards. So I spent like a week and a half in just dystopian hell. This was good. I feel like you read it and you're like, oh, I see what this is. It's the same concept. And they even denote in the back that like they were a huge fan when they were younger of the Hunger Games, and they were on like fanfic.com reading all the fanfics. And so it's kind of like their ode to like this genre, YA dystopian from like the early aughts, the 2010s. And so I had a good time, but a hard time, you know? Next, like everybody, I read Sunrise on the Reaping and Haymitch's Games. If you haven't read the Hunger Games, I don't know where you've been, but you know the Hunger Games. I don't even know how you would even write a synopsis for the Hunger Games. It's essentially like, honestly, I don't think I need to go into it. Anyways, there is a victor in the original trio, in the original trilogy, named Haymitch, who mentors Katniss, our main character in the original. And he obviously went through the games himself, and this is his games. And it's one of the more devastating books I've read. Like, I knew it was going to be hard, and I knew it was going to be rough. I didn't think that I would spend all 27 chapters crying, which I did. And I wish there was a way to say that this is a prequel in the sense that it tells you a story before the actual main story, but this is something, in my opinion, that you should not read as a prequel. Like, who's genuinely reading this before the original trilogy? Because this does go into, like, it does a recap. It explains to you the games, which I don't know why I should put that in there, because we don't need a recap. But I guess if you are actually reading them in chronological order, which is wild, I guess you would need that. I don't know why you would read them in chronological order and not just publication order. This was a rough time, to say the least. Great. Even the repetitive nature of explaining the games to us wasn't even annoying. Because I was like, oh, like I don't know why. It seemed less like in my face, even though I was like, yeah, I know how the games work, babes. This is book 5 that I've been in. I know. But I wasn't mad at it. This was rough. This was tough. Then I read One Day Everyone Will Always Been Against This. I really wanted to hurt my own feelings with these 3. Because this talks about, I don't even really know how to describe this nonfiction. But it's based off of the quote the tweet the author put, which was, one day when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against this. And then it's just like a book that expands on that. and the way the media and the world is portraying the genocide of Gaza and Palestine, and how it's being portrayed and how people are like for or against it in its own way, but then also talking about in the sense of like it's a breakup with the West. Like, this will go down as history as the moment people stopped believing in the righteousness or the justice or the correctness of the West, and the facade is like fallen, it's broken, and there's no getting it back, because how can you witness what you've witnessed and then say that you are just, that you are the almighty power of right kind of thing. And so it talks, I think at the very end it says it's like a breakup letter. What did they say? Yeah, it's a brilliant articulation of the same breakup we are watching all over the United States, in family rooms, on college campuses, and on city streets. The consequences of this rapture are just beginning. This book is for all the people who want something better than what the West has served up. This book is for our time. Anyways, this was a lot. And I'm glad I read it, because it feels like it articulated a lot of like my thoughts and feelings, because there's a moment where they talk about Aaron Bushnell and how the conversation of how can I have another conversation with another person when we're viewing the world so fundamentally differently. Because he talks about how like the situation with Aaron Bushnell and the self-immolation, and that there's like a screen grab or part of the video on the internet where he's on the ground writhing in flames, and there's a police officer who's holding a gun to him, and another one that's asked for a fire extinguisher. And it's like talking about how like that's what he's saying, like you're seeing such a vastly different world. Because I mean, first of all, why are we, you know? So, and it's also like talks about how like this time around people are just like so tired of it that they refuse to engage. Like, and like the refusing to argue with your family is the refusal to engage, because we're viewing the world like entirely differently. I'm seeing an entirely different picture. Like we're not seeing the same colors, we're not seeing the same structures. So instead we're just like opting out. And I don't know if that's right, and I don't know if that will be a winning solution in the end, but it really articulated some of my feelings about the current situation of the world. But I really did decide to like really hurt my own feelings, because these books, all three of them, great time, loved every minute of it. So that's currently everything I've read for all of February and March. I would, you know, I don't even know. I was gonna say, what were my favorites? Oh, you know, tough. I think my favorites for the month were these ones. Because I mean, come on. This one, because you know, yeah. Actually, yeah, no. We'll keep it. My favorite romances. It was a good time. So these, out of everything, were my favorite times, even if they were devastating. These are probably my top 6 out of everything that I've read in the last 2 months. So I guess let me know what your favorite book was that you read this month, if you read anything, or last month, or whatever floats your boat. And I guess I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.